But, you know, Mark Cuban came on Fox recently, and he said, look, your economic plan is obviously, number one, tax reform, number two, scaling back regulation, number three, tapping into energy, and number four, making sure that trade deals are advantageous to America. But billionaire Mark Cuban says if that plan goes through, there's going to be a market sell-off, Mr. Trump. Listen to what he said. I want to get your reaction. Roll this bite.
I have my Trump hedge on. In the event Donald wins, I have no doubt in my mind the market tanks. And so I literally have put on a more than 100% hedge that I'll put on stronger.
In the 48 hours. How do you respond, Mr. Trump?
Well, I know Mark, and, you know, the problem with Mark, he's not smart enough to understand what we're doing. He's really not smart enough, in my opinion, to really understand what's going on. I've known him for a long time. He's tweets me all the time. He sent me so many different tweets and calls me, although I must say not over the last number of months, because I said, look, this guy he'll send out so many tweets. I'll have to send you all of the Mark Cuban tweets and conversations. But Mark is not, I really believe, not smart enough to understand what's going on. He's a mixed-up guy.
I mean,
and I think this. Look, I think that this plan is a great plan. We're in trouble. Explain to Mark we have $20 trillion in debt. We have high taxes in this country, very high taxes. Our companies, much like New York, but on a much larger scale, our companies are leaving. They're leaving this country. They're moving to other countries. They're leaving for lots of reasons, but they're leaving because taxes are too high, regulations are too high, and they're leaving because they can't get money back. That is their money. They can't get money back into our country, both bureaucratically and from a tax standpoint. And people have to understand that.
And most people, business people, understand that a 15% corporate tax rate would be huge. But what about the entitlements? I mean, are you going to do anything about Social Security, Medicare? Isn't that where much of the cost is?
Well, you know, we have a contract with people on Social Security, and they're violating. So many people want to violate that contract. I don't. But what we are going to do is waste, fraud, and abuse, which is massive, and we're going to bring it so that it's properly run. But we are not going to do that. We have a contract, and we're not going to do that.
Mr. Trump, we got the debate on the horizon, first presidential debate. We're in countdown mode, less than 2 weeks away. How are you preparing?
Well, I think I did. I will do that like I did the other 11 debates. I had 11 debates, and I really love the process. You know, I never did a professional debate. I think my whole life has been a debate, Maria, a little bit like your life, right? But our lives have been a big, fat debate. But I've never debated professionally, and these politicians are, you know, some of them are virtually professional debaters, and yet every single poll had me winning every single debate. Every single poll had me winning every single debate. So I think I'll continue that. I will prepare the way I prepared for the other debates, nothing very formal. And, you know, really, you're preparing all your life for these. You're not preparing over a 2-week period and cramming.
Right,
You're really preparing all your life. And I've seen people, and you know the people I'm talking about because you've seen it too, and I've seen people prepare and lock themselves in a house and talk to nobody and take no calls and do nothing for weeks but prepare for a debate, and they get on the stage and they freeze and they choke and they are horrible. And I've seen it that way very often, actually, where they have so much knowledge crammed into their head that they can't speak.
I mean, do you feel like you have to bone up on the issues, foreign policy, I mean, economic issues?
I think I'm very good on foreign policy. I think I'm highly underrated on foreign policy, and I was against the war in Iraq. Believe me, you know, they like to say, well, you made a statement to Howard Stern. Well, that was long before the war started, and that was really not much of a statement. That was a sort of like, that was probably the first time the word Iraq was ever mentioned to me in any capacity. And I said, well, I don't know, Howard. You know, it's one of those things. But that was many months before it started, though. I was against it. In fact, somebody that told me about it the other day is Sean Hannity, who's a great guy, by the way. But Sean Hannity said, I know you were against it. So he used to argue with me because Sean was in favor of the war. By the way, in all fairness to Sean and the people that were in favor, is that the way Obama got them out of the war was a disaster because, you know, you had the surge and you had things, you know, stabilized as much as it could be stabilized over there. But the way they got out of that war was a horror show, and it was a disaster. But Sean and I used to argue all the time. I was against and he was for the war, and he brought that to my attention the other day, and that was before the war started. So I think people ought to maybe call Sean Hannity and you'll find out. But I was against that war, and I made a lot of good decisions. I also said take the oil, Maria, and to this day, that's the right decision. They like to say, oh, well, that's not the right decision. Well, if we took the oil, you wouldn't have ISIS because they fueled their growth with the oil. So, you know, and I mean oil from there, oil from Syria. The oil that ISIS has, we could have had. Now they have oil in Libya, okay? So now they have the Libyan. This is among the finest. This is the finest oil probably in the world, the oil in Libya. So we destroy Libya. ISIS goes in and picks up the oil. These people have no clue what they're doing.
Yeah.
And so I really think I'm very good on foreign policy, but I think I'm given no credit for it.
The war of words between Donald Trump and his old friend Mark Cuban spilling onto social media. The Dallas Mavericks owner took shots at the candidate throughout a speech last night on Twitter, but one of Trump's biggest supporters was not having it. Joining us now, our guy, he's back from D.C., Charlie Gasparino.
I did not get this in D.C. I got this.
You did?
Let me just give credit where credit's due. My producer got this story.
Okay.
He called up Cuban after, after last night's tirade. He went on a tirade during Donald Trump's speech, which, was pretty controversial. We should point out Donald Trump is narrowing the gap between he and Hillary Clinton in the national polls. A lot of people think that Mark is feeling a little heat now. Mark and Donald were friends. Now Mark is clearly in Hillary Clinton's side. As we pointed out, he may be a fill-in for Donald Trump in the debate prep that's coming up for the September debate. Be that as it may, this thing got pretty nasty last night. First, he starts tweeting about Trump. Michael Cohen, who's a Trump supporter, his lawyer, starts getting into the act and calls Cuban delusional. Cuban then goes back at Cohen on Twitter, and then we ask for a comment from Cuban and from Cohen about this. These are exclusive to Fox Business. We should point out,
problems.
Go on foxbusiness.com. This whole story is laying out. So first off, Cohen says that Cuban's got serious mental problems. He has real personal issues with Donald Trump, and he should concentrate more on his own ventures than on Donald Trump and Mr. Trump's surrogates. It's actually better than that later on, but you should. Yeah, there we go.
It's pure jealousy.
It's pure jealousy. He receives enormous amounts of attention and is recognized. This is the best part. Mark Cuban had to put his. He said that Cuban is so jealous because he had to put his name on the bottom of an Arby's commercial just to make sure people know who he is. I don't know.
Blow. Come on.
Okay, now here's what
everybody knows who Mark.
Now here's what Mark said. This is even better. Now he kind of attacks Trump through Michael Cohen, where he basically says this: Michael is right. I've been a lifelong devotee of Donald Trump, and my life is a shrine to him. I only hope that I can be him someday. I want to be able to cover the walls of my office with pictures of myself.
I admit this is pretty funny. I mean, come on.
And he goes on. These would be all new experiences for me, and just for a few of the reasons I long to emulate Mr. Trump. Is this so wrong? Can a guy dream? And thank Mr. Cohen for helping me confront my issues. I am forever grateful.
So Mark just saved himself a trip to the therapist.
It actually gets better than that. Oh, there we go. This is how he goes after Trump really bad. I want to be part of thousands of lawsuits and have companies I operate go bankrupt multiple times. Someday I hope to go broke so I can live off the allowance from my bankers. These would all be new experience for me, and just a few of the reasons I long to emulate Mr. Trump. We should point out that early in the 1990s, Donald Trump's casinos did go bankrupt. He never personally went bankrupt, but he was nearly insolvent. The banks that he owed money to as part of his real estate holdings and his casinos did put him on an allowance at the time. It was an allowance that you and I could live on very comfortably. We should also point out that Donald's made a lot of money since then, changed his business around, became much more of a reality TV star, branding expert. His real estate properties picked up as the economy got better in the 1990s. Let's be clear. There's a lot of animosity between the two, not just over politics. They brag about who's the better reality TV star, right? Donald has The Apprentice for many years, very successful. Mark has Shark Tank right now. They're both billionaires. Mark owns the Dallas Mavericks. Donald owns buildings with his name on. So this thing is heating up. I would say, go to foxbusiness.com and you'll get the full quotes. It is hysterical.
Love it. Great story.
It's a great battle.
Thank you, Charlie, and thanks, of course, to your producer as well. It's good stuff. Yeah, good laugh. All right, billionaires balking at each other. All right, Charlie Gasparino breaking it here. Thank you.